Sonia Benjamin did not plan to fall in love in a kitchen. She had a plan for her life. It was a good plan. It had structure and sense and absolutely no room for a Korean man who ran 4 countries from a building with no name on it, and looked at her across a pot of mayakguk like she was a sentence he had been trying to finish for a long time. She told herself it was the soup. She told herself it was the warmth of the house, Harin's laugh, Kennedy's stories about Atlanta, the twins who had appeared in a California market and decided she was relevant before she had any say in the matter. She told herself all of this very convincingly for exactly 3 weeks. Then Jian looked at her one morning over breakfast and said, without preamble, without looking up from her bowl, "You like our appa?" Sonia's spoon stopped moving. "Jian, it is okay," Jian said, still not looking up. "Calm as weather. We like you too. We decided in California." She picked up her spoon again. Arin decided first. But I agreed. Across the table, Arin was eating with the focused innocence of someone who had absolutely nothing to do with this conversation, and was simply present by coincidence. Sonia looked at her. Arin looked up. "What?" Sonia put her spoon down and pressed both hands over her face. From behind his newspaper at the end of the table, Kennedy Adam, tall, warm brown skin, silver-streaked hair, this morning in a deep burgundy shirt and charcoal trousers that said Atlanta Money without announcing it, lowered the paper exactly 2 inches and looked at Harin over the top of it. Harin, in a soft ivory wrap dress with gold earrings, was looking at her tea with a smile she was no longer bothering to hide. Kennedy raised the paper back up. Some things did not need commentary. Welcome to Black Silk Stories, the home of Afro-Korean stories that hit different. Subscribe, drop a comment, and do not go anywhere. This is only the beginning. Chung Ae found out about the breakfast conversation at 11:30 that same morning. Not from Sonia. Not from his parents. From a note on his desk. It was in Arin's handwriting, large, pressing hard into the cream paper, with Jian's single neat signature at the bottom confirming everything as fact. "Appa, we told Sonyuni that she likes you. She did not say we were wrong. We think you should do something about this before she goes back to New York. You have 12 days. We have checked her flight. Please do not waste them being serious. Arin and Jian." Chung Ae read the note once. He was wearing a deep forest green wool suit this morning, sharp, structured, the color of someone who had decided to be different without announcing it, with a white shirt and no tie. His fountain pen was in his hand. He set it down. He read the note again. Then he pressed the intercom. "Cha." Secretary Cha Suljiai's voice came through immediately. "Yes, sir. Clear Thursday evening." A pause. Not long. Secretary Cha had learned not to ask certain questions. "Cleared, sir. And send flowers to the guest room." Another pause, this one his. "Peonies. If they have them." Secretary Cha said nothing for exactly 1 second. "Of course, sir." He released the intercom. Looked at the note again. 12 days. He folded it. Put it in his breast pocket. Went back to work. But the pen stayed down for a little longer than usual. Thursday evening arrived the way significant things arrive. Quietly, without announcing how much was riding on it. Chung Ae came to his parents' house at 6:30. He was never early. Early was its own kind of message, and he was a man who chose his messages carefully. But he was early tonight, 6:30, with the particular precision of someone who had been ready since 5 and had spent an hour and a half pretending otherwise. He was in a dark plum double-breasted suit with a white pocket square, black Oxford shoes, the outfit of a man who had decided the evening deserved dressing for without admitting he had thought about it for 40 minutes. Sonia was in the garden. He saw her through the glass doors before she saw him. She was in a deep rust orange wrap dress that caught the late evening light and did something to it. Made it warmer, made the garden feel like a painting of itself. Her hair was up tonight loosely with a few strands falling. She was reading something, a book flat on her knees, feet tucked under her on the garden bench. She looked like she belonged there. That was the thing that stopped him at the glass door for 3 seconds longer than he meant to stop. She looked like she had always been in this garden. He went outside. She heard him and looked up. No performance in it, just her eyes finding him and staying there. "You're early," she said. "I am on time," he said. She looked at him with a small curve at the corner of her mouth. "Harin said dinner is at 7:30. "Then I am early," he said. She laughed, the real one, the whole face one, and moved her book to make room on the bench. He sat. Not close enough to mean something. Close enough that it did anyway. The garden was very quiet. Jian told me, he said. Sonia looked at her book. I know. She told me she told you. When? This morning. She knocked on my door at 7 a.m. in her pajamas, stood in the doorway and said I told Appa. I thought you should know. Then she left. Sonia paused. She did not wait for a response. She rarely does, Chang'e said. When she has said the thing that needed saying, she considers the conversation complete. She is extraordinary, Sonia said. Quietly. The way people say things they have been thinking for a while. They both are, he said. A silence opened between them. The comfortable kind. The kind that didn't need filling. Sonia, he said. Just Sonia, she said. He looked at her. Sonia. The word was different without the formality. He seemed to notice this. I am not good at this. At what? At? He stopped. Started again. I run things. I manage outcomes. I know exactly what I am doing in every room I walk into. A pause. I have not known what I am doing since approximately the day 2 7-year-olds arrived in my driveway, and one of them shook my hand like a CEO. Sonia turned to look at him fully. And now I have 12 days apparently, he said. According to my daughters who checked your flight. Sonia stared at him. Then she laughed. Not the polite one, not even the real one. Something bigger than both. Something that came from the place where things are genuinely, helplessly funny because they are also genuinely, helplessly true. They checked my flight, she said. They check everything, he said. Jian checked my blood pressure once using a book from my mother's study. She was 8 days into living in this house. Sonia shook her head slowly. Chang'e. Yes. I like you, she said. Straight. Clean. No performance. The way she did everything. I am telling you directly because Jian told me that being indirect is just slow honest and I think she is right. He looked at her for a long moment. I like you, he said. I have been trying to be professional about it for 3 weeks. How did that go? Poorly, he said. She smiled. He looked at that smile and felt something loosen in his chest that had been held tight for so long he had stopped noticing the tension. From inside the house, just visible through the garden glass doors, 2 small faces. One in a coral knit dress watching with bright eyes. One in a sage green dress watching with those quiet, assessing ones. Both of them disappeared the moment Chang'e looked up. He looked back at Sonia. They are watching, he said. I know, she said. They have been there for 10 minutes. He almost smiled. Almost. And you said nothing. I thought it was sweet, she said simply. He looked at this woman, who had crouched for a stranger's oranges in a California market without checking if anyone was watching, who had listened to a 7-year-old explain seaweed like it was the most important information she had ever received, who said I like you the way other people said good morning. Direct, easy, without the weight of performance. Have dinner with me, he said. Not here. Thursday next week. Just us. She looked at him. That is your second Thursday. Yes. You planned this. I am considering calling it strategy, he said. She laughed again. Okay, she said. Just that. Clean and simple and finished. From behind the glass doors, Aaron grabbed Jian's arm. Jian allowed it. Dinner that evening was different from every dinner before it. Not in the food. Not in the table. In the air. Something had shifted and everyone at the table could feel it and nobody said anything about it because saying it would have made it smaller. Harin had dressed for it. A deep teal silk blouse with wide trousers in the same tone, gold at her ears and wrists, the particular elegance of a woman who dresses not to be seen but to honor the occasion. Kennedy was in his burgundy shirt with a dark blazer added for dinner, which in Kennedy's language meant he considered this evening significant. The twins had been dressed by Harin with the specific intentionality she brought to all occasions. Harin was in a coral pink dress with a wide skirt and a white sash at the waist, white ankle socks with a lace trim, and small white leather shoes with a single pearl button. Her hair was in 2 high puffs with coral ribbon threaded through. She looked like a celebration dressed as a person. Jian was in a sage green dress with a Peter Pan collar, white tights and small sage leather shoes with a gold buckle. Her hair was in a French braid with a thin gold ribbon woven through it. She looked like composure given a color. Sonia had changed into a deep navy wrap dress. Elegant, unhurried. The kind of outfit that said she knew exactly who she was before she walked into any room. Chung-ae sat at his end of the table in his dark plum suit and watched his family, this word still new in his mouth, still finding its shape, and felt something he was only beginning to find language for. Appa, Arin said. Yes. You are smiling again. I am eating, he said. You can do both, she said generously. We have discussed this. Kennedy made a sound into his water glass. Jian looked at Chung-ae across the table, just looked steady and certain, and gave him the small nod. The one that meant, I see you. This is right. I have decided. He gave her the smallest nod back. She returned to her soup. The weeks that followed moved differently than weeks had moved before. Chung-ae noticed it the way you notice a change in weather. Not the moment it happens, but the moment you realize it has already happened and the air is completely different. He had dinner with Sonia on Thursday. Just the two of them, at a restaurant in Itaewon that had no signage outside because the people who needed to find it already knew where it was, which Sonia pointed out was exactly like his office building, which made him stop mid-reach for his water glass. You noticed that, he said. I notice things, she said. Jian notices things, he said. I know, Sonia said. She told me she got it from her father. A pause. She said that 3 days ago. Very matter-of-factly. Like it was already settled history. He was quiet for a moment. She said that, he said. She did. He picked up his water glass. Set it down. 3 months ago I did not know they existed. And now? Sonia said. He looked across the table at this woman who asked, and now? The way other people asked, are you breathing? Like the answer was the most important thing and she had time for all of it. Now, he said slowly. I check the weather before I leave the house because Jian told me cold air affects my throat and I have too many morning meetings to arrive hoarse. He paused. I eat lunch at 12:30 every day. I leave the office by 8. I know that Arin's favorite color is yellow, but she thinks coral looks better on her, and she is correct. Another pause. I know that Jian likes the window seat in the car but will always offer it to Arin first. And that she has not offered it once in 3 months because Arin always takes the window without asking, and Jian lets her, and neither of them has ever discussed this out loud. Sonia was looking at him with an expression he couldn't immediately name. What? He said. Nothing, she said. Just you know them. Yes, he said. Like it was simple. Like it had always been simple. Like he had not spent the first 2 weeks of their arrival standing slightly outside of everything, watching uncertain. A man who ran organizations discovering that he did not know how to simply be present without an agenda. You know them, Sonia said again, softer. That is everything, Chung-ae. He looked at her across the candlelight of a restaurant with no signage, in a dark plum suit, with a looseness in his shoulders that had not been there 4 months ago, and thought that she was right. It was everything. Sonia's 12 days became 30. Nobody announced this. Nobody negotiated it. Her return flight to New York came and went like a rumor, and she was still in Seoul, still at the Adam family table at breakfast, still standing in Harin's kitchen on Tuesday evenings learning things about soup that she had not known she needed to know. Her office in New York had questions. She answered them from Seoul and nobody could tell the difference, which told her something about the nature of places and belonging that she filed away to think about later. It was Jian who noticed first. Of course it was Jian. She came to find Sonia on a Sunday afternoon. Sonia was in the sitting room with her laptop, in a soft caramel-colored cashmere sweater and wide cream trousers, the particular outfit of a woman who had stopped performing casualness and arrived at actual comfort. Her hair was down. She had taken off her shoes. Jian stood in the doorway in a deep cobalt blue dress with a white lace collar, white tights and small navy shoes with a gold clasp. Her Sunday best because Harin believed Sundays were still occasions. Her braid today had a thin cobalt ribbon threaded through it. She looked at Sonia for a moment. Then she came and sat beside her on the sofa. Not close enough to intrude. Close enough to mean something. Your flight was 3 days ago, Jian said. I know, Sonia said. You are still here. I am. Jian was quiet for a moment, in the way she was quiet when she was deciding how to say the thing she had already decided to say. Are you staying? Sonia closed her laptop, turned to look at her fully. Would you like me to? Jian considered this with the gravity she gave all important questions. Then she said, we have already decided that we would like you to. I am asking what you would like. Sonia looked at this child. 7 years old, cobalt dress, gold ribbon, The eyes of someone who had been watching and filing and deciding since before she had words for any of it, and felt something move in her chest that she recognized from California. From a farmer's market. From the moment she had watched this child stand completely still in the middle of a busy market and decide about her. I would like to stay, Sonia said. Jian nodded once. Stood up. Smoothed her dress. Good, she said. I will tell Arin. She paused at the doorway. Also Appa. He will not ask you himself. He is working on being less serious, but it takes time. She looked back. We are patient with him. Then she left. Sonia sat in the quiet sitting room for a long moment. Then she opened her laptop and sent an email to her New York office that said she would be working remotely for the foreseeable future, effective immediately, and closed it again before she could second-guess herself. Chang'e heard about the email from Arin. Arin heard about it from Jian. Jian had heard it directly from Sonia. This was the information infrastructure of the Atom household, and it functioned with an efficiency that Chang'e's four-country operation could not entirely match. He found Sonia that evening on the terrace. She was standing at the railing looking out at the Seoul skyline, the city blazing below in the dark, thousands of lights making their own kind of argument for beauty. She was in a deep burgundy silk blouse and tailored black trousers, her hair loose, and she looked like someone who had made a decision and was standing inside the piece of it. He came and stood beside her. He was in a dark olive green suit tonight, structured, deliberate, the jacket slightly open, with a black shirt beneath. No tie. The city below them did not care what either of them was wearing, but he had dressed for this moment anyway, the way he dressed for everything that mattered. Neither of them spoke for a moment. You stayed, he said. I stayed, she said. Jian told me you said you wanted to. Jian is very efficient, Sonia said. She is, he agreed. A pause. I would have asked you. I want you to know that. I was building toward it. I know, she said. She told me that too. She said you needed time and she had run out of patience. Sonia glanced at him sideways. Her exact words were, Appa moves carefully, but Sonia's flight already left and carefully was taking too long. He looked out at the city. She is 7 years old. She really is, Sonia said. She runs this family. Her and Arin both, Sonia said. Arin runs it loudly. Jian runs it quietly. Together they are unstoppable, he said. I was going to say complete, she said. But unstoppable works too. He turned to look at her. Fully. The way he had been careful about until now, the looking that didn't have an exit strategy, that said, I see you and I am not managing the fact that I see you. Sonia, he said. Yes. I would like you to stay. He said it the way he signed things that mattered, deliberately, with full knowledge of what he was committing to. Not for 12 days. Not for 30. I would like you to stay. She turned to look at him. The Seoul skyline burned behind them both. Then I'll stay, she said. He reached over and took her hand at the railing. Just that. Her hand in his, both of them looking out at the city, the weight of a decision that had taken 3 weeks and a 7-year-old's impatience to arrive at. From inside the house, behind the glass terrace door, 2 small figures stood in the dark hallway. Arin was in her coral pink pajamas with white stars, hands clasped together at her chest, eyes wide. Jian was beside her in deep cobalt pajamas with small silver moons, arms folded, expression satisfied in the way of someone whose calculation has returned the correct result. I told you, Jian said quietly. You did, Arin whispered. You always tell me and you are always right. Jian said nothing, but she unfolded her arms and took Arin's hand. They stood there together in the dark hallway, watching their father hold someone's hand on a terrace for the first time in his life, and neither of them said another word because some things were not for words. Kennedy Atom proposed the dinner 3 weeks later. Not a quiet dinner. Not a family dinner. The dinner, the kind that required a private room in a restaurant that needed a phone call rather than a reservation, that required the right table and the right light and the kind of service that anticipated rather than responded. He announced it on a Wednesday morning in the kitchen, in a deep navy shirt and stone gray trousers, his silver-streaked hair freshly cut, the energy of a man who had made a plan and was now simply informing the relevant parties, which was, Chang'e noted, exactly what Harin did, which explained 31 years of marriage entirely. Saturday evening, Kennedy said. All of us. 7 o'clock. What is the occasion? Chang'e asked. Kennedy looked at him over his coffee mug. Does there need to be one? With you, yes, Chang'e said. You do not book private rooms for ordinary Saturdays. Kennedy smiled, the full Atlanta one. Smart boy. He set down his mug. The occasion is that this family has become something worth celebrating. And I would like to celebrate it properly. Arin looked up from her porridge. She was in a white broderie anglaise dress with a yellow sash, yellow leather shoes and yellow ribbons in her puffs. The outfit of someone who had woken up and decided today was important before knowing why. Are we dressing up? She asked. You are dressing up, Kennedy confirmed. Arin turned to Jian with the expression of someone receiving excellent news. Jian, in a soft lilac dress with a white Peter Pan collar, lilac tights and small silver shoes, was already nodding, one slow, satisfied nod. Harin said we are going shopping this afternoon, Arin told Sonia across the table. Sonia, in a warm mustard yellow blouse and camel trousers, looked at Harin. You already planned the shopping. Harin, in a soft rose blouse with wide ivory trousers and pearl earrings, smiled into her tea. I planned the shopping on Monday. Kennedy picked up his coffee. She booked the restaurant on Sunday. Before you announced it this morning, Chang'e said. Before I announced it this morning, Kennedy confirmed. Chang'e looked at his father. You two planned this together. We plan everything together, Kennedy said simply. 31 years. That is how it works. Saturday arrived in the particular way of evenings that have been decided about in advance, with a quiet ceremony to it, a sense of occasion in the air before anyone had dressed for it. Harin had chosen everyone's venue outfits with the focused intentionality she brought to all things that mattered. She herself was in a deep emerald silk dress, floor length, with 3/4 sleeves and a soft draped neckline, understated and completely magnificent, the way Harin always was when she decided to be. Her silver-streaked hair was pinned up with a jade pin, pearl earrings. The look of a woman who had arranged this entire evening 3 days before anyone knew there was an evening to arrange. Kennedy was in a white tuxedo jacket over a black dress shirt, black tuxedo trousers and black Oxford shoes. The white jacket against his warm brown skin in the evening light was the kind of image that made rooms go quiet when he walked in, unhurried, inevitable, Atlanta by way of 31 years of soul, and every single one of them visible in the way he carried himself. The twins emerged from Harin's dressing room, where they had been for 45 minutes with Harin, which was itself an occasion, in matching silhouettes but different colors. Arin was in a pale gold dress with a full skirt, a wide ivory sash at the waist, and small gold leather shoes with a pearl buckle. Her hair was in 2 high, elegant puffs threaded with gold ribbon that caught the light when she moved. She walked out of the dressing room with the bearing of someone who understood that the dress was not the occasion, she was. She had understood this since approximately the day she was born. Jian was in a deep rose dress with a full skirt, ivory sash, and small rose leather shoes with the same pearl buckle. Her hair was in an elaborate braid pinned at the crown, with thin rose ribbon woven through it and a small pearl pin at the center. She walked out behind Arin, looked at the room once to take its measure, and stood straight with the composure of someone who had already decided how this evening was going to go and was simply waiting for everyone else to arrive at the same conclusion. Chang'e was in a white dinner jacket over a black dress shirt, black trousers, black patent shoes, the mirror of his father's energy, the same authority expressed through a different generation. He stood at the bottom of the stairs when the twins came down and looked at them, his daughters in their golden rows, descending a staircase like they had always known it was theirs, and the expression on his face was not the controlled stillness of a boardroom. It was something he had stopped trying to hide. You look, he started. Beautiful. Arin supplied helpfully. You can say it. We worked very hard. You look beautiful, he said. Arin beamed. Jian looked at him with those eyes and said very quietly, You look like our Appa. He crouched in front of her. I am your Appa, he said. Jian reached forward and straightened his white jacket lapel. The gesture, always the gesture, the one that stopped his heart every time, and said, Yes, we decided that a long time ago. She stepped back. Now let us go. Grandpa booked somewhere with no sign outside. Like your building. Like my building, he said. It must be very good then, she said simply and walked to the door. Sonia appeared at the top of the stairs. She was in a deep midnight blue gown. Floor length, simple and devastating, with gold earrings that caught the light and her hair pinned up with 2 loose strands falling at her jaw. She descended the stairs the way she did everything, without announcing herself, without performing the entrance, simply arriving and being completely, effortlessly present. Chung-ae stood at the bottom of the stairs and watched her come down. He did not say anything. He did not need to. His face said it in the language he was still learning, the one that did not require management, that did not need walls around it, that his daughters had been patiently, persistently teaching him since the day one of them shook his hand on a driveway and the other patted his shoulder twice and told him he was going to be fine. He held out his hand at the bottom of the stairs. She took it. Arin grabbed Jian's arm. Jian permitted it. The restaurant had no sign outside. Inside it was warm and gold-lit, with a private room that had a round table set for 6, deep wine-colored walls, candles, and the kind of quiet that money buys, not as silence but as peace. They sat. They ate. Kennedy told the story of the first time he came to Seoul 31 years ago, knowing nobody, speaking no Korean, arriving at Harin's family home for dinner and understanding approximately none of what was said to him all evening except the moment Harin's mother looked at him across the table and said in very careful English, "You love her." And he had said, "Yes, ma'am. Very much." And Harin's mother had nodded and said, "Good," and passed him more rice, and that had been that. Harin, telling her version of the same story, said her mother had told her afterward. "He has a good handshake and honest eyes. Keep him." She said, "Keep him," Kennedy repeated, delighted still after 31 years. "Like I was a plant." "A very tall plant," Harin said. "A tree," Arin said immediately. "Like we told him in the orphanage. Very tall. Very well dressed." The table went warm with laughter. Jian was looking at Kennedy with something in her eyes that was not the usual assessment. It was softer than that. It was the look she gave things she had decided she loved. Private, certain, not for performing. "Grandpa," she said when the laughter settled. "Yes, baby. Will you tell us about Atlanta?" Kennedy looked at her. Then he leaned back in his white tuxedo jacket, warm brown skin golden in the candlelight, and he smiled the full Atlanta smile, the one Harin said could stop traffic, and he said, "Atlanta. All right. Let me tell you about Atlanta." And he did. He told them about red Georgia clay and summer heat that sat on your shoulders like a hand. About his mother's kitchen and the specific smell of cornbread at 6 in the morning. About the first business he built with $1,100 and a phone that kept dropping calls. About the morning he decided to come to Korea for a conference and met a woman at a hotel breakfast who laughed at something he said, and he thought, in the specific, irrational, completely certain way of true things, there she is. Harin, listening to a story she had heard 30 times, looked at him like it was the first time. Sonia watched them both and felt the specific ache of witnessing a love that had survived every version of itself and come out warmer on the other side. Chung-ae watched Sonia watching his parents and thought about what she had said on the terrace. "Would you like me to stay?" And what he had said back. And what it had felt like to mean it completely, without strategy, without managing the outcome, just meaning it the way his father had meant "yes ma'am" very much across a dinner table 31 years ago. Under the table, Arin's small hand found his. He looked down at her. She was looking at Kennedy, listening to Atlanta, her gold ribbon catching the candlelight. She had not looked at him. She had just found his hand the way you find something you already know is there. He closed his hand around hers. On his other side, Jian was watching Kennedy too. After a moment, without looking at Chung-ae, she reached over and put her small hand on his arm. Just rested it there. Present. Certain. The gesture that needed no explanation because it was not a gesture. It was simply the truth made physical. He sat between his daughters in a restaurant with no sign outside. His father's voice filling the room with Atlanta and red clay and a woman at a hotel breakfast. And he felt, fully, finally, without the walls, what it was to be exactly where you were supposed to be. He had built 4 countries from silence and will. He had not known, until 7-year-old hands found him in the dark, that belonging was the thing he had been building toward all along. Later, after dinner, after Kennedy had paid the bill with the quiet authority of a man who had never once in his life allowed someone else to pay, after Harin had touched Sonia's face in the doorway with both hands the way she touched the faces of people she had decided were hers, they stood outside the restaurant in the cool Seoul night. The city was alive around them. Lights and movement and the particular energy of Seoul after dark. Relentless, beautiful. Completely unbothered by anyone's feelings about it. Arin was holding Kennedy's hand, telling him something important about a dream she had the previous Thursday involving General Biscuit the orphanage rabbit and a very large cabbage. Kennedy was listening with his full attention. Harin was beside them, her emerald dress catching the light, smiling at something Sonia had just said. Chung-Yi stood slightly apart watching all of it. Jian came and stood beside him. She did not say anything. She looked at the city the way she looked at everything, taking its full measure, filing it away. Then she said, "Appa." "Yes. Are you happy?" He looked down at her. Rose dress, pearl pin, the braid Harin had woven through with such care. Those eyes that had watched him from a driveway on a Friday afternoon and decided, before he had any say in the matter, that he was theirs. "Yes," he said. "Really," she said. Not doubting. Checking. The way she checked everything for accuracy, not reassurance. "Really," he said. She looked at the city for another moment. Then she said very quietly, the way she said the things that mattered most, without performance, without announcement, just the truth placed carefully into the air between them. "We are happy too, Appa. We were waiting for you. We just did not know your name yet." He did not trust his voice for a moment. When he found it, he said, "And now?" She looked up at him with those eyes. "Now we know everything," she said simply. He put his hand on her small shoulder. She leaned just slightly, just enough against his side. The soul night moved around them. His father's laugh rose above the city noise. His mother's voice followed it. Sonia looked across at him over Harin's shoulder, and something passed between them that did not need words and did not need witnesses except the city itself, blazing and indifferent and somehow exactly right. Chung-Yi stood in the soul night with his daughter leaning against him and thought about a Thursday he had signed papers without reading them. He thought about a driveway and a yellow dress and a hand held out formally by a 7-year-old who had already decided. He thought about soup that needed a little more time. He thought about all the things he had built and all the things that had arrived without warning, and how the things that arrived without warning had turned out to be the only things that were truly, completely, irreversibly his. He had not ordered this life. He had signed for it without reading it. And it was, without question, the best thing he had ever put his name to. Thank you for staying until the very last word. This story was made for the ones who believe that love does not always arrive the way you planned. Sometimes it arrives in a yellow dress, shakes your hand on a driveway, and decides you before you have any say in the matter. If this story found you, if it sat with you, if it cracked something open, if you watched this family and felt something you were not ready for, then you are exactly where you belong.